So hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another Assetto Corsa Competizione video. So a number of months back I started the route towards covering all these GT4 cars as they sort of launched and just trying them out at varying different circuits. Well, that seemed to go a little bit wayward. I don't know whether I got a little bit bored driving the GT4 cars, but just watching this replay back in the KTM Xbow that we're going to be looking at around the Nurburgring, thoroughly enjoyed driving this car here. And as much as the GT4s don't seem to be covered hugely in some of the online lobbies, I did have a little race the other night, and this setup just blew everyone away, to be honest. I think I finished I think it was a good 50 seconds before anybody else, and that was only really a short 15-minute session. So obviously you can determine the quality of the rest of the field, or you can say some people might have had a little bit of an off, but right from the very off I was instantly ahead. But the setup, as you'll see, I've been working on as part of the special event section. Obviously it's not logging the special event times, but it's still enjoyable to take part, and you're still getting a setup for a car just in case you happen to run one in whatever leagues that you're running. You might be lucky enough to get this set up to help you out in one of your future races. So we'll have a look into the setup of the car. You'll see I just ran a short session here quite easily, hitting the 205s. They are, I wouldn't say easy to come by. You need to be nailing at least a good portion of the lap, but I certainly think there's a far better time within this setup. But it's just finding the time to hit that the top end of the grid. So we'll come out of this session, we'll just have a look. We've had a little look at the lap times, and I will leave the lap time of the video from the lap that I've just set. But if we go into the special events page, and you can see this is the one that I'm looking at down the bottom, number 72, and I've not been able to log a time. It's not allowing me to set my fastest time, but you can see two guys there hitting the 205.6s. But yeah, I just can't. It doesn't log the times at the moment, so it's I guess it is irrelevant what time you set during this time trial event, but it's just a fun event to do. Certainly gives you a bit of an understanding on how to slide the car. So we'll just look over the setup that I've created. If we come into the setup, still not able to delete these. It'll delete it in this session, but it just reappears again the next time I'm back. So running over the tyre pressures, I've set these so that you can at least have an attack at lap 1. Or obviously you come out of the pits, you're just warming the tyres for the first lap. The second lap, you can actually have a good go at this, and I have got into the 205s even on the first flying lap. But the third lap really is what you're aiming at nailing. But I think if you set a good lap during the second lap, it gives you something to aim for during your third lap. And the tyre pressures will be in a better range for the first portion of the circuit when you're coming around to do the third lap. So it's definitely looking at the third lap really for when the tyre pressures are at the optimal pressure. Obviously looking at around 27.5. The toe, I've sort of left these where they are really, 2 at the front, 2 at the rear, or -2 at the front and +2 at the rear. It just seems to help the car rotate better. You will see on the replay that there is a little bit of understeer in this car, but again there is obviously a little bit of oversteer as well, just to try and get the car rotating. I think in some of the corners you could do with a little bit more rear grip, but it's very hard to find that at the compromise of front end turning. I have tried a number of different setups, as you can imagine. Probably takes me about 2 or 3 days to be really happy with a setup, and I can keep coming back to it, and I'm not particularly wanting to make any changes to the setup. It's just about dialing in and getting on with setting a good lap. Obviously I'm adding quite a bit of weight to the wheel at 9.1 on the caster. I will just have a quick look. Let's just have a quick look at the options and the controls I'm using. Obviously I've got 60% gain, dynamic damping at 150, road effects 40. The steering lock for the KTM Xbow is 480, and I've got that set on my wheel as well. And I have got, just on the right hand side here, just use my keyboard to come down because it's much easier. I've got 0 and 1 so that I can adjust these really quickly, the traction control on the wheel. You can see I do make a few alterations with these during the lap. So let's come back to the setup. Pretty much done on that page. You could add a little bit more camber at the rear if you wanted to make the rear end a little bit more stable, but I think that does actually it does actually have a negative effect on acceleration, I think, if you add too much rear camber. So coming to the traction control, I've got this on 1, but I will flick between 1 and 0 during the lap. ABS 3, obviously we're in a hot lap session, so just running the lowest fuel that we can get in the car, really, that will do 3 laps, 8 litres, and brakes 1 on the front and rear. Anti-roll bar, as you can see, I've got this set just completely blank on the front and the rear, just to try and get more grip. You probably could, I say you could add more anti-roll bar because the car does suffer with a little bit of understeer in some of the corners, but again, I think if you start adding anti-roll bar at the rear, the car will end up just sliding more at the rear as you approach some of the high speed corners, and I think it's at the detriment really of the car setup, adding sort of any rear extra rear grip, because it obviously causes that front end to lose. You'll be causing more understeer, really. It really is a balancing act in this car to try and find that perfect setup. But yeah, I'm happy with where it's at, and I think if you just keep running laps, you will find the time. Brake power obviously absolutely maximum, and the brake balance obviously to try and get the car to rotate a little bit in some of the corners, at 55. And the steering ratio, I did bring this down. Like I've said time and time again, I do like a more pointy car. I did try this at 14, but it just seems too twitchy at 14. 15 was the best option, I think. Obviously running absolutely maxed out wheel rates at the front, just to try and get rear stability, really. You could bring that down again. It might help with some of the understeer, but again, you're going to lose traction at the rear of the car. They're all negative effects, really, I think, if you're trying to find that better balance. The preload, again, we're just trying to get the car to rotate off some of these corners. It just feels like you could do with like something that's in between 1 and 0 on the traction control. Sometimes it seems a little bit too happy on the power to oversteer out of the corners. Sometimes it feels just perfect, which is why I flick quite quickly between traction control 1 and 0. But you start to bring this down and the car really does suffer understeer coming out of the corners, and understeer coming into the corners. It has a very negative effect, so absolutely maximum on the preload. Dampers, there's not much to see here. It's obviously we're down in the GT4 class, so there's no sophisticated setup on the suspension. It's just bump and rebound. There's no fast bump adjustment, but it's a strange one, really, because usually you would find that if I'm running a stiff setup on the wheel rates at the front, you would usually find it should be stiffer on the bump and rebound within the damper settings. But I have messed around with these, and these are to try and sort of find the subtle changes with understeer and oversteer that you can make using the damper settings. So as much as I've adjusted these, probably wrong if you were to use Motec. Again, we haven't got that benefit on console. I'm running this on Xbox, but it does cause the car to just have a better feel when it comes to understeer and oversteer. The only other adjustments we haven't got any front splitter. We can adjust the ride height, but we can't change anything with the front splitter. But just to get the car to rotate again, I've just lifted the rear of the car and just added a little bit more rear wing. I think you could probably get away with reducing the rear wing if you wanted to try and run a little bit more straight line speed, but again, it's a very twisty circuit, Nurburgring, and I think it does benefit from having a lot of high downforce. Obviously the brake ducts, we've closed those out, doesn't seem to generate too much temperature through the brakes or through the tyres. The track's not too hot at 28 Celsius, and it does say fast there, but by the time we have actually got ourselves onto a flying lap, it is more of an optimum circuit level of grip. So yeah, let's have a drive around the circuit. I'll reposition the camera. I'll do the old sort of bird's eye view position while I'm driving, and I'll try and film this again in 1080p. I think last time I tried doing this, it did bring the resolution, the frames per second, down to 30. So I'm going to try and recapture what I see, so you can get an idea on how much input I'm putting through the wheel and just how much fun this car is to drive. Get rid of that on the left hand side.
Go, go, go. Low tire pressure, stay clear of the curves.
So it will feel a bit slidey on the outlap. We can just sort of get used to where we're wanting to position the car. Really slidey through here. Just get a little bit of a feel for how the car wants to slide. It is a bit fun, I think, on the outlap. And just get used to changing the traction control. Braking just after the collar, the cones on the left hand side, right hand side back there. Just one shift down, so you'll be coming down again. It's like a double apex, this corner. Use all the curb on the exit. Back to TC1. Definitely don't want to run out there on your lap, but again, using all this runoff curb. Up the curb on the right. Little lift. Back on the power. Braking at the board on the right hand side, using this inside curb if you can, and just a little dab of the brake pedal through here, trying to pick up that inside curb, disengage the traction control, back to TC1, and then a really important corner just to try and settle the car before we go through the chicane here. Definitely before that bump you want to have the car settled, and then on the power. Get a good line for the start. You don't really want to start your lap like that, but we haven't really worn the tyres as good as I'd like to on the usual outlap or usual flying lap. So braking at the 100-yard board. Get the car turned in nice and early. Just like a little lift through there, and the rear end starts to come round. It's a really nice corner. Again, we're just sliding through there. Feel the car just understeering. But again, it just feels like there's a lot of oversteer as well in some of the corners. Just a little lift and back on the power. It is a fun little car to drive. Just turn the engine note up. Just a little lift as you're on the grass. So let's try and go for a better lap. Not the best, especially when you mess up the lap. Just trying to give you an idea what I see when I'm driving. So across the line. We'll do one more session. I'll do another lap. So nothing really to change.
Right, this is a Super Bowl. You've got 2 time laps. Give it everything you got. Low tire pressure. Stay away from curves.
Very different feel when you're coming out the pits. The car just really does slide all over, which is a bit of fun as well. But I imagine this is going to be much more what it's like in the GT3 cars. In the patch 1.8. Just going to take a lot longer to get the tyres into a temperature range. Don't really want to touch that inside curb. Don't really want to touch that inside curb either. Just really want to be just scraping it, not really riding the curb. lots of understeer coming through there. It's almost like you could do with more preload on the differential. You run too wide there, you can pick up a penalty. Just understeering there. Just feel really slow as you approach it like that, but you're just carrying so much more speed momentum wise, not coming down to second gear. A good banker lap. So there we go. Managing to get into the 205s once again. So you can see it's not massively hard to achieve. But yeah, certainly a fun lap. So hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you find the setup useful. Please do like and subscribe as usual to the channel. Hit that bell notification if you want to get updates on videos as and when they release. And please do follow that link as well in the description to use the PayPal. Any donations to the channel would be greatly appreciated. Even if it was just $1 per view, that would be just amazing for the channel, and it could just keep these setups coming, and I can just offer them freely and people can just enjoy them at their leisure, as and when you need the setups. Hopefully when 1.8 comes, you won't need to adjust all these setups. I don't think there'll be a massive difference in how things are performing when it comes to the lap times on console. Hopefully we're going to be sort of getting a little bit closer to the PC times. I have heard 1.8 has slowed the lap times a little bit up for PC drivers, but hopefully we sort of level the playing field between console and PC. We're forever seeing these faster lap times on PC, and I think generally that comes just down to the difference in the game versions. But yeah, please do make any small donations to the channel. Really do appreciate them. Come through the PayPal account and use the friends and family option, which saves me paying a commission for each member sending money. But again, greatly appreciated. But yeah, thanks for watching once again. I've got another setup I'm working on in the Audi GT3 car at Snetterton, which I've really enjoyed doing, to be honest. I've never driven at Snetterton in ACC as yet, but thoroughly enjoyed getting to grips with the Audi around there, so that'll be coming in my next video. But until next time, ciao for now.